Welcome back to the channel, and welcome if you are a first-time viewer to our channel. Today I'm going to go over some of the rooftop tents pros and cons. Okay, before we get started, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and the notification bell. That way you're notified every time a new video is uploaded. I'm gonna get started right away because I'm not here to waste your time. So we're gonna get started right away with the list. Pros list. Number one, easy setup and easy teardown. Rooftop tents on a normal basis can be set up within minutes. So the faster ones within 1 minute. On average, you'll spend about 5 to 10 minutes on setting up a rooftop tent completely, and it's just exact opposite of setting up when you're tearing it down. So it's pretty easy to do. You don't have to worry about staking things to the ground and things like that. There are certain tents that you do need to stake down. It's usually for like the entrance points and things like that, and you just need to run 2 guy ropes, which is a lot better than a ground tent where you have to run 4 to 8 different points of staking down into the ground. So there's your pro. So it's a lot easier to set up and a lot easier to tear down. 2, there's more room for equipment in your trunk. So now the tent is up on the roof, you're going to have that much more room in the trunk to carry more things or carry more people. If you have children, you can actually carry, you don't have to leave one home. You could bring all of them to your campsite. So that's a plus there. Third one, it's off the ground. All right. What's the advantage of having it off the ground? First thing is less bugs, less animals. Okay. So if you're on a ground tent, I think we've all heard the horror story of if you go camping at night in the wild, a bear might come and take you from your tent and rip you apart. It's scary stuff. Now, with it being on the rooftop, there's definitely a less chance of the bear attacking you, less chance of raccoons getting into your tent and things like that, and also less chance of bugs like ants. Okay. You don't have to worry about ants, like worms or anything like that getting into your tent because you're way above the ground. Okay. Another advantage to being above ground is you will most likely have better airflow, and you will most likely have better views compared to the ground tents at the same location. So that's definitely a plus. Having that extra view when you get up in the morning, just looking out the window, you're able to see further, see more things. I mean, the whole point of overlanding and camping and things like that is to go off grid and enjoy nature. So to be able to take that all in while you're on, 5 to 8 feet in the air is better than being on the ground. Okay. Another thing, the tent doesn't have to have a separate storage in your house. Okay. So you don't have to go clear out your attic, or you don't have to go clear out your basement to store this tent. Unlike a ground tent, like you're not going to be carrying it around with you everywhere. Because this is on the rooftop, you could technically leave it there and you don't have to really worry about getting in the way. You still have your trunk space, like I said before, for your grocery getting and anything like that for daily duties. So you could just leave the tent up there and not have to worry about storing it separately. Another thing, let's say you went to go camp and it happened to rain that day, or it happened to snow overnight. Now your tent is all wet, and it's all dirty from the mud and everything like that. On a ground tent, basically, you have to fold all that up, with all the mud and the wetness and everything. And then you bring it home and you wait for a nice sunny day. You open it all up and you start wiping things down. You start drying things out, and you have to sit there and do all this in your driveway, in your front yard, backyard, wherever it may be. Or you might even get to a point where you have to set up the whole tent again so that you can wipe everything back down. But with a rooftop tent, this is a lot easier. Yes, you still have to fold things up in the wet, but one, you're probably not going to have mud because it's not on the ground. So if anything, you're going to have some wet tent parts. So you're going to have some rainwater or snow that's going to melt and things like that. So once you get home, all you have to do is open it back up, which takes, again, just a few minutes, and let it air out. You could wipe things down with a dry cloth and just wait for it to dry out on its own. You don't have to really worry about the toughness of cleaning your tent after your trip. So that's definitely a good thing. And you can also add an annex to these tents. So obviously you can add rooms to ground tents as well, but a lot of people will say, hey, those rooftop tents don't have enough room. You can't get up and walk around in them and things like that. I mean, that's why there's an annex. You could always purchase an annex that usually um, actually attached to the entrance point of your tent, giving you more extra room on your first floor, because your tent is going to be basically your second floor at that point. You're going to have a first floor room with your annex where you can cook things. You can even put a bed in there. You can sleep in there. You can just kind of chill out, wait, listen to the raindrops and things like that. I mean, it's a nice option to have. Okay. um, and then last thing is it just looks cool. Having that rooftop tent, it draws a lot of attention while you're actually at the campsite, or even while driving to places. People are going to always ask, hey, what is that? What do you do? And it's just a cool attention grabber. So that's another pro, if you want to call it that. I guess some people don't like that as well, but I mean, I'm going to put that in the pro section. All right. So let's go down the cons list. I mean, it's the rooftop tent is great. I've been using it for several years, and pros part of it is amazing, but I also noticed a lot of cons while I was using this. So let me go through that list. One, they're pretty heavy. They're usually around 160 pounds or so. They couldn't go up to like 180, 190. So they are heavy. But I mean, weight wise, I guess you can lift it on your own if you really wanted to. But because the sheer size of the actual unit, a lot of times it takes two people to install or remove it from your vehicle. So that's a con. It's heavy and it's big. And because it's heavy and big, you also need to make sure you have properly rated crossbars and roof rack on your car, so that it can actually handle the weight. Okay, so a lot of times, factory equipment crossbars can't handle the weight, so you'll have to get aftermarket crossbars. For example, a Ford Explorer that we did for Ford before, the OEM crossbars were only rated to 120 pounds, whereas in the tent actually required 150 pounds or heavier crossbar. We did make the mistake of using the OEM crossbars, and it worked fine for a while, but after a year we went to go remove the tent. That's when we noticed the OEM crossbar actually had sagged quite a bit from the weight. Okay, so I don't recommend you do that. All right, we've done it. Not recommended. So if they require you to get a 150 pound or a 200 pound or a 250 pound crossbar, do it. But that is definitely a con, because a lot of cars don't come with crossbars that are rated for that type of weight, and you'll have to spend extra money for that. Okay. And this kind of goes back to the pros, where I said you don't have to store the tent. But cons is if you wanted to store the tent, if you wanted to remove it off your truck or off your vehicle, for when you're not going to camp, it's heavy, it's bulky. There's no place to really put it because it doesn't fold up small into a bag like a regular ground tent. It's huge compared to a regular ground tent. And like I said, it takes two people to usually put it on and off the truck, or an SUV, whatever. So that's a big con. All right. Next, MPG can suffer on your car. So, I mean, I don't know if too many people are worried about MPGs when you're overlanding, because a lot of people are driving trucks anyway, and trucks get horrible gas mileage anyway, especially when you're putting 35-inch tires, 37-inch tires on them. Your MPG drops. So what's another few points off your MPG by putting on a rooftop tent? But you might be one of those people that are putting it onto, a Subaru Outback. You might be putting it onto your daily driver BMW X5, and you'll actually you'll notice the MPGs drop, just because your aerodynamics has now been turned into utter crap. There's a big box on top of your truck now, or your vehicle, that's going to cause all this wind resistance and things like that, where your MPG is going to suffer. So you're going to notice that too. So that's bad. Next con is wind noise during driving can happen. When you put anything up on the rooftop of your vehicle, wind noise is something that can happen. It doesn't happen all the time. It depends on what's up there, depends on how the car is designed, how high the actual product is on top of your vehicle, you know, how the wind reacts to it and things like that. But there is a chance that they could cause some wind noise and it could get annoying. Um, if it doesn't, a lot of times, a lot of tent companies will actually provide you with an optional wind fairing system you can put on the front of the tent. That way you don't have to worry about wind noise, but the risk is there. Okay. Next thing I've noticed is height clearance issues. So with the tent on top of our Explorer from a few years ago, and then now we have a tent on top of our F-150, um, we really have to watch where we take these vehicles, because sometimes I can't even fit through a drive-through because the drive-through actually has a lower height limit than what my truck can fit into. I can't park my truck into my own garage at my house because my truck actually sits higher than the entrance point of my garage door. Um, when we go to downtown and we try to go into these parking garages, my truck just can't fit. So I've learned not to take the truck into places like that, which kind of sucks because, you know, you would want to be able to take your vehicle anywhere and everywhere, but, you know, because of the height restrictions, you do have to watch where you're going. Sometimes we've been to a mall with my truck and we would go in and we would cringe as we were driving through the parking garage, hoping that I don't take out a light. So yeah, so that's definitely a con. Next con is you need to always try to find a flat ground. Okay, so obviously with ground tents, you need to, you know, put your tent on a flat ground. So that's kind of weird that I picked this out. But here's the thing: with a ground tent, you can park your car anywhere. You could park on an incline. You can park on a decline, whatever you want to do, and just find a small spot for your tent to be flat on. With a rooftop tent, you have to make sure you're parked on flat ground because you're technically sleeping on top of your car. So it needs to be flat wherever you're stationary at, wherever you're setting up camp. So sometimes it can get tough to try to find something like that. A lot of times, you know, you'll find spots where the car is a little bit crooked, and then you will end up using like a recovery board or some blocks to kind of balance your car out, to level it all out so that you're not on an incline while you're sleeping. Okay, so that's a little bit of a hassle that you have to worry about. Um, the next thing is, this was more of my wife kind of thing. When we were going camping out and things like that, the biggest complaint my wife has is about the ladder. During the day, it's okay because you can really see where you're going. The ladder's fine, but middle of the night, you know, you need to run to the bathroom, you need to do something. Um, it's pitch dark out usually when you're camping. So trying to go down the ladder when you're half asleep and it's dark out, it can get tough. All right, and you have to make sure that you're paying attention every step of the way, or you could potentially injure yourself doing so. That's definitely a con, having that ladder. You have to go up and down. Okay, and the last thing that I really wish there was a way around it is, every time you need to use your core to do something, you have to fold up your tent. So with a ground tent, you just leave the tent where it is and you take your car, you know, you run to do whatever you need. If you need to get some supplies, you can take your car and go get supplies and come back to your campground and you're fine. But with the rooftop tent, because it's attached to your vehicle, every time you need to use your vehicle, you need to actually tear down your tent, fold it all up, lock it all down, and then you can move your vehicle to do whatever you need to do. So it's it's a pain in the butt in that sense, that if you need to move your vehicle around, or if you need to get some places, while your campground has to be torn down every single time. So after, you know, a few years of actually camping out like this, one thing that we ended up doing when we built the F-150 for overlanding was added a bike rack in the back and threw on some electric bikes. That way we can get around the campground, we can get around the site, you know, go sightseeing, go check out the river, check out whatever we need to check out, even ride it to the nearest shower site if we needed to, without having to tear the whole camp down. Okay, so that's why I'm listing that as a con. And, you know, the way we did it, I guess that's a one work way around it. But if you really do need to use your vehicle, again, that becomes a huge con that, you know, you'll have to tear your whole site down before you can move. All right. So I hope this narrows down some of the questions that you may have before you make your rooftop tent purchase. If you have other questions, or if you are a rooftop tent owner, if you want to add to the list of what I have on here, you know, definitely comment below. And you'll be helping out other future rooftop tent owners or potential overlanders. So thanks for watching. If you haven't done so yet, please like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.